Hello everyone and welcome to another Starcraft2 video. For this one, we're once again continuing our series of the big Gauntlet tournament for all of the bots on the ladder. So last we left off, we had Terran002 kind of on a run, walking through a whole bunch of bots. I think he went 6 wins before he finally lost to Braxbot, which means Braxbot will be continuing on as the king of the hill at the moment, and he'll be facing our second machine learning bot after NickBot learns, and this is Doogie Howitzer. So we're going to get a PvP, and it's going to be Doogie Howitzer likes to do the cannon rushing. So let's see what this appears to be like, and we'll hop right into it. So we earlier did have a bot called Base Cannon, and now Base Cannon was not exactly a cannon rush bot, but it gave us that, a taste on our tongue for Cannon Rush, and now we finally get to dive into this meal. So we are loading up the game here, and it's going to be on Ice and Chrome, so a little bit of a larger map. And yeah, so spawning in the top right side, we have the red Protoss. It is Doogie Howitzer. That's made by MindMe. And by 8 racks, we have Braxbot, the blue Protoss, the returning champ, in the bottom left. So in terms of machine learning, for Doogie Howitzer, it's a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not aggressive, but we'll go with aggressive anyways. More of an aggressive machine learning attempt in that the vast majority of this bot is machine learning. Obviously, a lot of bots script portions of their bot and then machine learn other portions. But this one, I believe, every structure placement is calculated by the AI. So it's not something that's hard-coded. So every time he throws on a pylon or a cannon, or eventually gateways, it's all machine learning related. So no reaction to this pylon or probe inside his base. This is something you'll probably commonly see at the beginning of this tournament here, as the bots near the bottom are typically a little more rudimentary, and they haven't planned for all these edge cases like getting cannon rushed. But that said, with the first pylon getting up cleanly, and a second probe on the low ground, we are going to get some cannons going up here. We got 1, 2, 3 cannons on the way with a low ground pylon. First Zeld is popping out. Second gateway is on its way. With the Cyber Core, of course, all this is within range of the first cannon, which is a little bit scary. Cannon focusing down a pylon, which is a nice low hit point target, probably smarter than the Zealots, although he's not switching targets to the Zealots. He really wants to finish off that pylon, even though it's not an important powering pylon. I don't believe he'll have range on the second pylon. But with that said, the first Zealot is down, and these gateways are all within range of the cannons. Doogie Howitzer is floating up to about 700 minerals now. Not sure exactly what his plan is. I know he throws down gateways at some point. I thought I would expected to see more cannons. Maybe he's attempting to place it like over here, and this probe's just like, I can't get over there. How do I get over there? But we're not actually seeing any little placement glow, so not sure. But that said, with bots, they often don't place structures from far away. They usually travel to the location, then place it. Yeah, but all of his key presses are like inside of this pylon, so I'm guessing he's trying to build something over here and just is unable to. So 1,300 minerals in the bank. The lack of reaction from Braxbot and the fact that the cannons are in range of his initial gateways seem like very good for Doogie Howitzer. However, with that said, I don't see where the follow-up is here. Braxbot is continually trying to expand, so he's just going to be leaking one probe at a time. This is a common problem with bots, including my own. And, this leak just always ends up eventually equating to all your workers being dead. Especially annoying for Terran, because with Terran, Sometimes you lose the worker that's producing a structure, so you send another worker there, and just that logic alone can end up losing you all of your workers. Yeah, Stalker does warp in right in front of those cannons' faces and gets wiped out. We got a worker kill count of 13 and growing. Braxbot is still somewhat saturated, but eventually he's going to run out of money to build Stalkers, which is probably his one way out of this, if he could ever get up to like 4 or 5 Stalkers and then attack into a cannon. It looks like they're more interested in the probe. I don't know why they're charging so far forward. But with their shields down, at least they do try to stay out of range somewhat. Nope. Not very well. Oh, we got cannon. Progress has been made. This poor... this poor probe is all trapped. We do have some more cannons in the back here. Throwing down gateways now. Okay, gateways could be the kill move. I was about to say I don't know what the logic is to decide when to start gateways, but there probably is no logic for that. It's probably, again, based on machine learning. So just based on previous results, you know, what's the good gateway timing? What based on your bank and the state of the game, and maybe how many cannons you have, what your how close your cannons are to the opponent's base. There's probably a whole bunch of factors that go into it, and then ML comes up with some sort of formula to weight all those criteria. 2 more gateways going down. 3 more gateways, I should say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gate. That's a lot of gateways. And none of them have walled off the ramp, luckily. I'm not sure if that's something coded into this bot or not, but I could see that being an issue. If the Zealots were walled off outside of this base, then maybe there would never be a finishing blow. With that said, Braxbot is looking pretty much dead. Constantly rebuilding in front of these cannons, constantly attempting to expand to the low ground here. Now he has run out of money to expand with, so it's more or less just building probes and sacrificing pylons. However, the first Zealots have arrived, and with that I believe we can safely speed up the game now, as I assume this will be the killing blow. And yeah, solid victory for Doogie Howitzer. I mean, even in real human Starcraft 2, it's all about getting that first cannon up. So if you can get the first cannon up, things usually balloon out control for the cannon rusher. And in this case, with no reaction to the first cannon, it got up quite easily. So Braxbot did kill the 6-0 Terran 002, but couldn't put together a streak of his own, falling on his first defense. And that means Doogie Howitzer will be moving on. We bring up the bracket here. Doogie Howitzer will be continuing to face the number 46 seed, which is Sharky Example. So a little confusing, but there's a really nice framework built for Python called Sharpie. So you might see that terminology used sometimes in bot names. But there's also a nice framework built in C Sharp, and that's called Sharky. So yeah, a little confusing, yeah. So .NET Core, which is typically C Sharp, I guess. And it's going to be a random bot, which is interesting. So based on whether it gets its good matchup or not, we could see varying degrees of success here at a Sharky Example. I will assume, like random human players, the fact that it's hard to know the intricacies of 9 different matchups makes you more likely to cheese. It's true for humans. I would assume it's going to be true for bots as well. But with that said, let's hop into the next match and see if Doogie Howitzer can start a streak of his own, or if Sharky Example can take over with his possibly the first random bot. Yeah, this is the first random bot we've seen. Nope. I think it's the second. I believe it's the second. But probably will be the first win by a random bot, see if he can pull off a victory. Yeah, so we are here on Pillars of Gold. We're just waiting for OBS to pick up the window. There we go. Pillars of Gold. It's another large map example here. And spawning in the top right, we have the returning winner. We have Doogie Howitzer, who will only cannon rush, so don't expect any variations there. Meanwhile, in the bottom left, spawning as Terran from a random selection, it is the blue Terran. It is Sharky Example. So just based on the name alone, I'm guessing this is probably something to show off the Sharky framework. It's like, hey, if you want to build a bot in C#, I made this framework in Sharky, and here's a little example bot, you know? I'm guessing that's what it is. Maybe an example bot that just got decent, so they threw it up on the ladder. With that said, we got a depot into barracks, into a second racks, and that is probably the best possible opener versus a cannon rush, I would think. However, we are seeing no reaction to the probe or the pylon. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea to try to kill the pylon with workers, but you can certainly go after the probe, especially if the probe just threw down a pylon. That makes it a much more threatening probe. Cannon is down, and no reaction there either. We know how the probe pathing has issues finding places to play cannons though when it traps itself. And here it's created this little tiny gap that he may not ever be able to find his way out of. These are pylons going down, so it's just the one cannon. And we did have that nice opener of Sharky Example, so he will have a nice early Marine count. Let's see how smart he is with the Marines. Is he good enough to prevent new cannons from going up here, but not running into your death into those cannons there? I see that. Well, that could just mean a lot of things. Is it being smart and shooting the pylon and staying out cannon rays, or is it just shooting the first thing it sees? It could certainly just be shooting the first thing it sees. This Marine's staying back though, which is interesting. So maybe there is some built-in, threat acquisition saying, hey, this is a cannon, stay away. But not that Marine, because that one's ugly. Only this Marine. Like, you can see he's constantly moving back here and constantly moving towards there. So this could be like a bug where like you just keep giving the Marines like conflicting commands. But it could also be, hey, let's try to stay out of range of the cannon. Bots usually end up looking like this when they're trying to stay out of range. But often, if the cannon range is to like here, you'd see the Marines just saying just outside of range, not doing this. With that said, though, we're seeing the same functionality of the SCVs. They want to build a depot here, but he's like, hey, that's not a safe spot, so don't build it there. He's not digging his way out of this pattern. If these are mobile enemy units, this would logic would be okay, because eventually that space would become available, one would think. But it's not going to happen versus a cannon. Pretty large Marine count at this point. Bring up the units tab. We're up to 11 Marines. However, he is facing 4 cannons on this high ground. Whole bunch more on the low ground. You could certainly say an expansion's not going up, and he's going to get knocked back to 1 barracks. So I'm guessing this example bot for Terran is probably just a mass Marine bot, something we've seen a lot out of this ladder thus far. Just because it's kind of a nice starting point for Terran. Don't have to worry about gas geysers or anything complicated. Just make barracks, make depots, make Marines, make SCVs, and have some sort of attack command. You know, with experience, you could throw that together in a couple hours. Or without experience, it's just it's a nice, solid starting bot to learn the API. It is able to rebuild his 3rd barracks slightly out of range. So that will help with the Marine count. So this could take a while, I would think, right? Because I don't think the cannons are going to get in range of shutting down the mining, which means it's going to rely on the zealots. However, Sharky Example is doing a good job of keeping his Marine counts high. So, you know, assuming these guys aren't afraid of zealots, they'll be able to deal with the zealots quite quickly. More gateways coming down, though. Doogie Howitzer up to 3, 4 gates, 5 gates. And first Zealot is on the way. Shark Example is kind of stuck at 41 supply. He wants to continue making depots, but he wants to build it here, which is a problem. Oh, that Zealot actually allowed him to build another one in a new spot. The Zealot also got a couple of Marines dragged in. You interestingly want to like run here before they start shooting. Nice kiting on that Zealot. The Zealot has no chance of getting a range. I've always said with bots that slow Zealots don't even have to power up their side blades because you'll never actually get in range of a ranged unit versus bots. Well, at least versus a well-microed bot. So again, the Zealot kind of coming from this angle here was able to push a bunch of Marines towards the cannons and got a nice pile of kills. And that hurts, right? Because he was at 41 supply and now he's down to 31, and again he's supply blocked, so he's going to stay at 31. Now dropping down to 29 so he can finally start making Marines again, but that means he's at like 2 Zealots against 2 Marines at the moment, and one of the Marines just died. So nice kiting out of the final remaining Marine. But he will get caught in a corner. Will he get that Zealot in time? No, he will not. He's stuck trying to run out over here, saying, why can't I run there? Yeah, so it looks like the kiting involves just running away from the Zealot. There's no like pathfinding involved, which is obviously to be expected. Pathfinding is something we see in very few bots, and obviously something that we would not see at the bottom of the ladder. But if you see, like, for instance, Micro Machine with his Reaper control, he'll be, like, skirting along the edges of the base and looking like it's certainly dead and still finding a way to get out of a base. If we bring up the units tab here, we are at 8 Zealots versus a single Marine. Now, Sharky does have a whole bunch of minerals. He's got 3,200 minerals, so he will be able to constantly produce from these 2 barracks, and even if he loses a bunch of SCVs, he's got enough of a bank to be able to afford that and continue to rebuild again. So yeah, for example, he could lose all these workers, but if he could deal with this Zealot count, which he clearly can't, he can go good, 2-3 minutes with no economy, because he's got like 3,000 minerals to build a single SCV and 2 Marines at a time from. Anyways, with that, I'm going to speed up this match. Boom. So another solid victory by Doogie Howitzer. This streak could last until we face a bot that actually decides to do something against a cannon warping into their base. Because it doesn't appear like, even with the depot barracks opener, that that Marine pops out in time to deal with the first cannon. You really have to get an SCV pull going. The other option is, since Doogie Howitzer is machine learning, there's a good chance we might see the cannon starting on the low ground in a less threatening position. And if that's the case, it might be okay for the opponent. So let's keep this train running. We got Doogie Howitzer at 2-0, taking out Sharky Example. And now pushing up against Roach Rush. Just by the names alone, this will be an interesting one. So, Roach Rush. Well, let's take a quick look as I load up the replay, see if there's any information here. We do have a GitHub link, so you can see the open source for this bot. Was there any other information there? And it's produced by Tweak Imp in Python. Yeah, so I mean, roaches are good versus cannons, and if you're rushing roaches, you might have a good pile of them to deal with cannons. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna work out well. I don't think just blindly rushing the roaches and A-moving them will be able to deal with the cannons. Now, with that said, Doogie Howitzer did open last game like pylon, cannon, pylon, pylon, right? So his early cannon count was pretty low. So if you spawn your first 4 or 5 roaches and there's only one cannon to face, then all of a sudden it's looking better. Another massive issue here is this is the first time that Doogie Howitzer has to deal with creep. So how good is the AI at selecting positions when there's creep involved? Not a big deal, as I assume Roach Rush is not going to be going for Zerglings. But this spawning pool is in a very vulnerable position against the opening cannon salvo. And yeah, with the high ground pylon being the first structure, I expect we'll be seeing the cannons on the high ground. So first cannon is on the way. Unfortunately, the Roach Warren is also in a forward position, and that will be in range of the second cannon. So the Roach Warren is the important one, I would think. Taking one Gas Geyser seems about right. Queen is on the way, so that'll get the injects going. However, no reaction to the cannons once again. Now, I can envision this working out kind of okay. Because I could see this spawning pool going down around the same time that the roaches spawn. And if that's the case, then he'll get to fight with broodlings and roaches. Now, they switch targets, so there's some targeting priority in this bot. I'm going to assume that's scripted, but it looks like these cannons choose their targets wisely, and it's going after the roach worm before the spawning pool. And the broodlings do spawn without the roaches. The roaches, well, they kind of took well, no, probably didn't help at all. Oh, and that micro's not good. Yeah, it looks like they're not attacking as quickly as possible because of that micro. But they will get a cannon down. Yes, one cannon goes down. And unfortunately at Roach Rush, I'm not seeing a rebuild of the Roach Horn. Like, obviously if he tries to rebuild it up here, it's just a terrible idea. But if he rebuilds this over here, then all of a sudden he's not out of this game. With that said, that is a 4th high ground cannon. Unless there's some advanced calculations at a Roach Rush of when to actually charge the cannons, which a lot of bots don't have. Like, bots typically, they just, you know, as the units spawn, they'll attack into the cannons one at a time, which will never be good. However, I don't think this is even a valid point, as I don't think we're going to see another Roach Warren out of Roach Rush. Looks like Roach Rush has that hard-coded build order, and if that build order gets interrupted or it gets knocked back a couple steps, there isn't any way to repair it. I think a common way most bots do build orders is like, you look for the existing structures and then you build the next one. So there's like steps, and that way if you lose a structure, you can still repeat that step. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up because I think this is going to be another quick one out of Doogie Howitzer. And in trying to get through this entire ladder prior to this weekend's real Gauntlet tournament of the top 8, hosted by Probots on the ES Champs channel, I gotta do a lot of games, so thank you, Doogie, for helping me get through these games quick. With that said, that is a 3-0 Doogie Howitzer. I did mention that I thought Terran002 would not get matched with his 6 wins, but we have potential here. So let's bring it back to the ladder here. So Doogie Howitzer knocked out Braxbot, followed by Sharky Example and Roach Rush. Next, he'll be going up against Fire. Fire, I think, is a bot that I used to have difficulty with. I think it's a Terran that has a pretty aggressive opener that was something I couldn't handle for a while. So I'm not sure how you'll deal with Protoss or Cannon Rush. It could be completely different. But I think he was doing like proxy barracks, if I recall correctly. I could be making all of this up. So either way, we'll find out soon enough. Another Python bot by Eldvind. Kind of sounds like Elvin, but not quite. And yeah, let's hop right into it. Now, Fire is about 80 ELO higher than Doogie Howitzer at this moment. So the ELO jump is getting pretty serious. He's around 1595, which I think puts him right around average ELO. No, he's 1567. I think average is always 1600. So we're getting towards the midpoint of the bots, I guess. At least the mean midpoint. So this one's going to be on Death Aura. And spawning in the top left, we have the Challenger bot. It is going to be Fire, already sending out a probe, or an SCV, I should say. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, sending out a probe of his own, it is Doogie Howitzer after a pylon, of course. Gotta get that forge at home at least. So Depot is going down for Fire, and this SCV will be there in plenty of time wherever he wants to proxy his barracks. So proxy versus proxy. I wonder if Doogie Howitzer ever builds cannons at home. I wonder if Fire will freak out from the cannons and pull his units back to defend, which is usually a bad thing. I think a good rule of thumb for bot authors is if you proxied structures, then just stick to the offense no matter what's going on at home. Probably better to base trade than it is to try to bring back these units. It's kind of like the opposite of a proxy at that point. You know, the whole defensive advantage is that your production is right where the fight is. Now you put your production further away from the fight. Which is good if you're on the offense, but bad if you're on the defense. Uh-oh. These... Oh boy. Yikes. So no new probe is being sent because these two haven't died, but these two do not know what they're doing. I think I saw them trying to build a pylon over here. Don't know what that was about. Oh boy. So this is kind of unfortunate. I was interested to see how this would turn out with the proxy marauders versus cannons in your base. Like, could you handle the cannons? Would you come back to defend? Could you handle the marauders? Would you build cannons on the defense? I guess we still might find out if he builds defensive cannons. But if he starts that logic when the first marauder arrives, it's probably already too late, I would assume. I mean, it's getting issued move commands. You can see it being lit up there. So it's just, you gotta stop trying to go here and pick a new location. And you can see the selection is going back and forth between these two, so... I mean, I think it's, even if it clicked out of it now, it's probably too late. And with the forge down, I mean, he's just probably going to build a bunch of pylons. You never know though, sometimes when a structure dies, it kind of clicks a bot out of its bugged method. Okay, we do have probe defense. But probe defense against 4 concussive shell marauders is yeah, not so effective. Might get one. This guy is not retreating in the most optimal path. Nice target fire. He is going after the weak probes. Oh, that's why he was moving forward, probably. Trying to snipe the probe that was retreating back to the mineral line. With that said, I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up. Dum-dums. I think this probably would have favored the fire. So maybe this is, you know... Oh. We got a pylon finally. Yay! You did it, boys. You know, so this is a way for Doogie Howitzer to lose without actually admitting that he's worse than the fire. It's just like, ah, there's a bug. I would trash him with cannons if I had a chance. The other thing is marauders are great units versus cannons. They can kind of... I think one marauder in most situations can shut down an entire cannon rush. Because even if you put like a cannon right next to a pylon, a marauder on the far side can shoot down the pylon from the other side. So it's really hard to actually protect the pylons. With that said, this is all decision making and control that probably only applies to humans, unless there's a very advanced bot. But with the pathfinding on certain bots, you'll probably handle that. They may not target the pylon, but they'll be smart enough to kind of circle around the outer range of the cannon until they're able to shoot the pylon. Yeah, so nice showing out Doogie Howitzer. Unfortunate way to end it, but taking 3 nice wins. It would have been nice to actually see him lose to a bot that beat Cannon Rush. So something that would actually react pull workers against that initial cannon and lose that way. Yeah, so that was a victory by Fire. So Fire will be going up against a Llama Gate. So it's going to be a TVP, which will be interesting. If he goes Proxy Marauders again, that's actually a legit build versus Protoss. Proxy Marauders can be really hard for Protoss to deal with because Zealots, especially with Concussive Shell, just get kited. Stalkers get trashed by Marauders, and Adepts, they do bonus to light. They're not really going to do much damage to Marauders. Now, Marauders don't do much damage to Adepts either, but they're definitely stronger units dollar for dollar. So, yeah, we'll hop into it, but I think there could be trouble unless he builds the shield battery. Or fights on this ramp. Anyways, this one's by Max Knack. And it's going to be a Python bot. And shoot, what the heck replay was I on? Hoping I'm loading the right one. I'm going to err on the side of not spoiling, so maybe I'm opening the previous game again. What was that on? That was on can't remember the name of that nap. Death Aura, I think. Oh, okay, we might be looking at the same game. I'm certainly not re-recording this whole entire video, so we'll just have to deal with this. Edit videos? No. That's not a thing. Yep. All right, so loading into the next match here. Once again, it's going to be Llama Gate versus the Fire, or versus Fire, I should say. Fire didn't really earn its first victory, but it did look like it was doing a strong build. So I expect it'll still be trouble for the following bot. With that said, every bot he faces will be a bot that's higher ELO than himself, and by a wider and wider margin with each victory. So let's see how far the Fire can get. We are loading the right map this time. We will be on Golden Wall, and this will be a TVP. So spawning in the bottom left, we have the returning bot. It is the Fire, once again sending out that early SCV. Meanwhile, in the bottom right, we have the new Protoss. It is Llama Gate. So you do notice a lot of these bots are written in Python. I think that's for a good reason. Python is a kind of an easy language to use, and there's so many resources for the Pylon API with bots. So if you don't have like an extremely strong preference for language and you want to join the botting scene, I'd highly suggest doing Python. I think I would have had I had this information when I first started, but I didn't, so I just picked the language I was most comfortable with, which is Java. And it's since I've had to do a lot of extra work that I wouldn't have had to do with Python. But also with it being the most popular language, it means just more resources, more example bots, more bot authors to ask questions of. The downside being that Python is pretty slow on performance, and with bots doing a lot of calculations 22 times a second, like there's 22 frames per second for the bots, performance becomes an issue. You can't be doing like some calculation that takes, half a second to complete when you got to do it 22 times a second. So that would be the one downside. So we're going to see a 3-gate opener followed by a Cybercore. So again, a lot of aggressive 1-base shenanigans out of these bots. But when you're facing other bots that are doing aggressive 1-base shenanigans, it kind of makes sense, I guess. Because either you do the aggression yourself or you need to survive aggression. Either way, you need a lot of early units. The Fire getting his second Tep Lab, Barracks down, Concussive Shell is on the way, as is the first Marauder. Meanwhile, at home, a slowly finishing the wall off the first few depots. And taking a second gas, which doesn't really seem necessary. Maybe if you're trying to rush out Stim. Anyways, first Marauder is on his way. And okay, so he'll be stuck on these gateways for a while. Not trying to push his way towards the mineral line, not trying to go after these pylons. But the nice thing about staying as far back as possible, it means when the unit does spawn, he's going to be able to kite it most efficiently. And I think preserving Marauders is probably an important part of this strategy. Because once you get up to like that crucial number of Marauders, especially if you pick off the first couple Stalkers, it's going to be so hard for the opponent to deal with it. Pushing forward, it looks like he did find some probes, so he's got some new targets here. And as those probes go down, they will be cutting the gas income, which could actually cut into the Stalker count, I'm unsure. With that said, the Stalkers are not to my good the best. They are outnumbered, so we won't blame it too much on that, but it'd be nice to see him focus these weak Marauders first. There's one that's been red for like 3 fights. That Stalker actually was able to pick off a red Marauder, though. So trading 2 Stalkers for 2 Marauders, that's nice, but now there's only one red-lined one left. And more Marauders on the way. Yeah, so I did think the second gas seemed unnecessary. Fire is up to 200 gas and nothing to spend it on. He is getting Stim, and despite that, still floating a bunch of gas. Not sure how effective Stim will be. There's going to have to be some smart decision making, otherwise you may end up stimming your own army to death. But that said, I'm not sure if this is a spot that Llama Gate can recover from. So many Marauders still in this base. And his worker count has been cut in half at least, which means we're going to be seeing few to no Stalkers. I think he's chrono boosting and Cybercore, though, is doing nothing at the moment. And with the end of these workers, we will call out the end of this match. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 8x, just make sure no one crashes here. I didn't even notice that. Awesome observing, Ketrock. So it looked like the plan was to warp it across the map and go. And being so intent on watching that fight across the map, I didn't actually notice that he started floating one of the barracks back home, expanded, and was starting to tech up to a whole different game. So he is going for combat shield, he got reactor barracks, an Inge Bay, second Inge Bay, more barracks at home. So it looked like he was going to go into sort of like a mass bio play. I'm assuming this factory is to eventually get up to medevacs. So we will see a transition out of this bot if it's necessary. Yeah, so the fire's looking pretty strong here. And we are 40 minutes into this video, so I think we will call it there. Nice little run by Doogie Howitzer and Fire. So Fire has defeated both Roach Rush and Llama Gate, and next match he'll be going up against probably the first veteran bot we've seen in this series. So Benbot has been around for quite a while. Best known for Benbot BC, which was a BC rushing bot that had very solid strategy, I would say. Able to like defend more or less everything on 2 bases while teleporting BCs across the map to try to win the game. I think Benbot version 3 is similar to that, except it kind of cut out the BC rush. So it's more about, expanding, defending, getting bio with upgrades, maybe late game BCs because, he's obviously got BC code, but definitely more of a bio focus to start. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Of course, when you're facing proxy builds, how advanced your bot is may not matter. So it's anyone's match next time, but I'll be interested to see what Benbot can do versus a proxy build out of Fire, assuming that's what Fire does in TVT. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out of here.